Okay. Married to working together without killing each other. Today is episode number 2. And today we're going to discuss exactly how to do that. But you're going to have to walk through this one with us. Because honestly, I don't think that I know. This has been a struggle to try to figure out today. This is one of our most popular questions. How did you guys do it? How do we continue to do it? What's all the things? Which got my wheels spinning last night when I thought about it. Thank you all, by the way, for everybody who liked, subscribed, listened, all the things. Keep the comments coming, ask us questions. We want to cover stuff that you guys want to hear about. But we have actually probably been in business together more than we haven't, like in our relationship. 4 years of our relationship, we did not have the gym. No, only 3 years. So we got together in 2016 and 2019 we started opening the gym. I feel like the first thing that comes to mind though is a lot of forgiveness, and a lot of understanding when you're working together that it's not necessarily your marriage. Like when you're working together, you have to be working together. When you're like frustrated or overwhelmed, I feel like it's more, you have to understand that it's business, not your marriage. Does that sound right?
I'm telling your story.
I feel like this is just something we're both gonna have to communicate on though, because I feel like this is just, it's really hard. So the biggest backstory I think you guys may not know is we honestly just drove past the gym one day and there was a sign for Remax and they were looking for somebody to do this, so we thought the building looked cool. And we're like, screw it, we'll call. It just so happened that the realtor's brother had a gym that closed, that he had all this equipment for sale, so we were able to purchase all that and then just open the gym. So I feel like it came to life so fast that I just feel like we didn't really there were struggles, I feel like, in the beginning. Putting together equipment, not knowing what I was doing. There was a lot of you telling me to sit down.
I feel like we remember this very differently.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because you put all the stuff together, though.
No, yeah, I put it all together. Originally this was supposed to be RDI, and they got stuck with the building, so when we called and did all that. The equipment came from a bank auction.
Well, yeah.
It didn't come from him.
Yeah.
So, and then the rest of it we kind of bought and pieced together. And then I think at the time I was running my online coaching business, so I had a little more free time after I took the kids to school. I think you were still working
at the hospital,
at the recovery center, and all that. So a lot of afternoons I'd come in, set the equipment up, do whatever. Had a couple buddies that came in, was giving me hands with it. No instructions. Most of the stuff was all piled into crates, so it wasn't even like it was kept together at all. So literally had to Google pictures of the equipment, look at how it looked online, and then basically piece it together from there. All the weight plates didn't have stickers or anything on them, so that was awesome. We literally just had to separate them by size and then line up the machines as best we could. So that was probably taxing with it, so to speak, but it was what it was. I want to say it's probably a couple of months after we opened is when you kind of quit and started here full time.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly when it was, but
well, we opened in August and I quit in October of that year.
okay.
So, yeah. so it was like actually after we opened, but significantly before that though, there was windows that had to be put in, doors that had to be put in, like all these things that had to be redone.
Yep.
So then before that, there was still stuff going on behind the scenes, coming in, checking every day. We actually had to move our opening date twice. Was it twice or 3 times?
Twice. The third one we just wouldn't move, so we just knew it wasn't gonna be complete.
Yeah.
Just from delays with companies and things coming in. I mean, anyone who's ever done construction before, you know how that is. So we kind of was trying to base it off timelines we were given by people. Unfortunately, you know, some people weren't able to stick to those timelines.
Which I feel like is what started a lot of arguments. Like, it was not that we were frustrated with each other, but it was just like, is this really gonna work? Can we do this? Blah, blah,
Well, I
blah.
feel like a lot of our fights come from just having two very different personalities with it. We have delays, we have issues like that, and you get very aggravated and aggressive, and I'm a lot more, there's nothing we can do about it, so how do we just regroup and go forward? And I feel like that's where a lot of it comes from, because you still want to let it out and you want to be more of the, I'm going to hold them to what they said, and I'm a lot more of, it doesn't matter, they said this is what they're going to do, so we have to reroute our plan and figure it out. So then, you know, that would cause a lot of fights, because you'd,
I'm very much of a control freak. I have to
Yeah.
have things my way.
if things aren't following the plan in your head you had, you get very, very flustered.
Yeah.
And usually I can, you know, roll it off and it doesn't matter, and there's sometimes where it's like,
I've done it too many times in a row.
alright dude, like it is what it is, you're gonna throw a fit, or we can figure it out and move forward. And there's some times where, you know, I'm that way, and then you call and get kind of stern with somebody, and then they actually figure out a way to make it happen a lot sooner like they were supposed to, so, I mean, there's definitely, you know,
Works in my favor sometimes.
there's perks on both sides with it, so.
I feel like over the years, we've found a way to soften with each other. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like now you just know who I am and I know who you are, and we just kind of try to work around that. I feel like that's accurate. Like,
I don't know if I'd say that. I think more like through the years, we've had a lot of personal development.
that's
I think it's a lot more of, you know, growing as individuals, which has allowed our ability to be together a lot easier, so to speak. Like one thing with me, that I've tried to work on the last handful of years is just, the 100% accountability. Like, if I'm wanting something done, if I want something a certain way, if I'm trying to communicate to you, I'm the one who wants that, so it's my job to communicate it the best way possible and make it happen. It's not your job to understand it the way I want to communicate it. So understanding it's my responsibility to get that across correctly, and understanding that, hey, I may think black and white and, you know, straightforward and very direct, but you don't. And it's actually a aptitude test of people as far as like how they communicate, called a DISC model. And I think for the most part, you know, the more you move to the center of that, the better you are communicating with all people. But I think we're definitely opposites on that. I am very direct, you're not. When it comes to that, so
I feel like I am with certain people. Like the people that are like close with me, I am. But also, this is really hard too because this is the first like healthy relationship that I've been in. So if there's anything I feel like that I can tell our viewers or listeners is be with somebody who challenges you to be better. Like Charlie and I don't really like fight. Like we don't get super loud or anything like that, but quote unquote, people all the time say mom and dad are fighting in the gym because I feel like whatever we have to say at work, like I feel like we just say it. Like it's very like, no, this is my way, this is your way, like, it just comes out in the moment. Now there's times where I feel like at home, sometimes we'll bottle things up and occasionally we get into arguments, but I think that's after long days of work plus like everything with the kids. So it's like we're both just kind of at the end of our like rope by that time. So I think on the rare occasion, compared to previous relationships, like I don't feel like we really have gotten like loud with each other, but what, maybe a handful of times? Like 5 times to where we actually will storm off and like shut a door
I
or
don't ever storm off, so that's not true.
yeah, that's true.
I don't. I'll stand my ground and we'll argue it out till we're done.
Actually, you had one time, and this would be for another podcast because I would love to discuss that, was the first time that you actually tried to open up to me, and I did not handle it the way that I needed to.
I didn't storm out. I just left.
You didn't, yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't an argument. We were trying to talk, and then you didn't handle the conversation the way I wanted to, so I know it wasn't going in a good direction. So I decided just to end the conversation and leave.
Yeah. But I would definitely note that down because I think that's something that you guys would probably like to hear, because that was, I do feel like one of the big arguments that really started to change things.
Yep.
Because as women, we're not used to men wanting to communicate. Anyways, we'll talk about that later. But
Quick tip on that: men will open up one time to you, and depending on how you act, that will tell if they ever open up to you again. 100%.
Okay, I'm gonna divert that though to a later podcast. We'll talk about that later because I really would love to dive more into that. But I don't know. As far as in the,
Or we can just talk about it since we're talking about communication anyway.
I mean, yeah, but like
That's just a specific example, but obviously
Yeah.
that's part of it.
But I would love to really just circle that about. I'd like for you guys as viewers and listeners to let us know like what you would like to hear.
We got 50 minutes left, bro.
I know, but what you guys would like to hear on that, because I would love to make it a whole segment about like men's mental health and communicating and all the things. This one, I feel like I'm trying to specifically let them know for like workplace, how have we been able to get here? But I really don't know that you and I know exactly how we did it. Like, I think we just both were in the mindset of like, we have to pull up our boots and do this and just figure it out.
Honestly, I think the hardest part about it, for the most part, and I don't even mean this in a mean way, is you are one extreme or the other when it comes to us communicating at work. And I know I've joked with you this a lot, but you are either, no, I'm an owner too, I'm gonna do what I want, or you're,
Yeah.
it's your business, I don't care, da da da. Like, there's never an in between with you. And I feel like lately you've kind of started to move towards an in between. And I think that's helped a lot. I think a big part of owning a company together is you both have to have roles, and you have to know what your roles are.
But I think you really do have to know your faith though. I think when I really started diving into my faith and doing that, like I feel like
Yeah,
I
but-
really balanced out a lot.
By saying that, move, you talk about this. It's an inside joke, that not gonna joke about the interrupting cow. Cause every time I start to talk about something, she interrupts. No, I mean, you say knowing your faith is what made you help know your role
Right.
with me and with the company, right? So with that, you're understanding that no, I'm not a peon, I'm not a nobody,
Right.
but also I'm gonna trust your direction and your decision. And I feel like that helped eliminate a lot of it because
But I really focused my identity on you.
Go.
Like, I did. I really sought your validation and I respected you, loved you, all the things. Like, when I really started trying to find my identity, like, in who I was as a daughter of Christ, I feel like I really, like, I stopped putting that pressure on you. And I put it more on, like, that is something I need to find in myself, not from you. Because I think I constantly sought Charlie's attention, like out of all things, regardless. And especially being in this industry, like it's easy to feel like when you're in this industry, like you would help somebody with their form or something like that, and it's always like, oh great, like this girl has his attention and blah blah blah. We all know that girls are conniving and sneaky, so it was one of those things. But I think that was a big part in it. And coming from a 9 to 5, where I had big instructions from work, I was held to a certain standard. I had to do this. I think that's probably been the hardest part of all of this, is learning systems and all of that, because for a long time it was just me and you. So we had the way we did things, but then trying to bring on employees, I think, is what made it like really hard more than anything.
Second podcast, she's telling to mute her phone.
I did mute my
Second
phone.
one.
It's the same alarm too.
I know. I did mute it. It's just not my alarm's muted.
I feel like you just went from one conversation to completely the other one, by the way.
I probably did.
You have. To go back to the original one, yeah, I mean that's an issue that I feel like everyone struggles with for a long time, right? They put standards and desires on individuals and on people that people will never be able to do, right? As human beings, whether we like to admit it or not, we are always craving a relationship with our Heavenly Father. And when we don't seek that relationship with Him, when we don't build that, we try to put those needs we get from Him on other people. So like understanding my identity in Christ and what He gives me, if I don't accept that and have that in my mind, I try to put that on other people. Like, oh, well, we're together, He's supposed to make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
No, He's not. That's not His job. He can't control your emotions. He can buy you flowers one day and it makes you happy, buy you flowers the next and it doesn't. Like, that's not His job.
Which I feel like is what you've always been good at. Like, you've always been good at, like, I'm going to work on me, which I think makes you really good at, like, holding other people to that same standard.
Well, that's what everything has to be. I mean,
But it's hard for people that aren't the same as you, right? Like, I feel like you've gotten a little softer about that.
I want to get my screaming goat every time. That's somebody. My next podcast, and I have my screaming goat every time she interrupts me.
Okay.
So back to the first point of that. Yeah. But that's the problem. So like when you're seeking validation in someone else, when you're seeking that attention, when you're seeking all these different things, you're putting a standard that only God can fulfill on a human, and that's not fair. They will always let you down. You'll always be upset. You'll always feel like it's not enough. You'll always feel like you're needing more. You'll always feel like you're never fulfilled in relationships. You're always going to have something missing. You're always going to have this doubt. You're always going to have these things going on because you're trying to solve those problems with a human, and you never will. You never will for yourself, and you never will for someone else. And when you start to accept that, and you start to understand that these things I'm seeking, there's only one place I can get it from, then it clears up a lot of the other clutter that goes on in your day-to-day life. So it's no different than, I've talked about it on other podcasts I have about your identity. God says Himself, like He is the great I am. He says it in Exodus when He was talking to Moses about who shall they say I sent me. He says, I am. And when we identify ourselves, that's the very phrase we use. We say, I am, da 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 da, right? When you put your identity on anything in this earth, you're tying yourself to it, which is number one, not correct, but number two, it's fragile, right? If I say I am a bodybuilder, but tomorrow I get in a car wreck and I can't move, am I still a bodybuilder? Who am I now? Am I not a person? What is it? If I say I'm a singer and I have an accident or get a bad cough or whatever and I tear a vocal cord, what am I? Those are things I enjoy. God gave us things to enjoy in this life. It says it very directly. We have things we enjoy. And I feel like that's a big misconception that people have even in the Bible itself, where it talks about granting us the things we want. Well, if we want in Christ, we want nothing else. When He talks about He does give us things to enjoy, those are things we enjoy. I enjoy lifting weights. I enjoy paintballing. I enjoy playing a game. I enjoy football. I enjoy XYZ. But it's not my desire. It's not my identity. So that's first and foremost. You have to understand that. And then when you understand that, you start to understand your role on earth a lot better. And then all of a sudden, this, I gotta figure out who I am. I don't know who I am. You're right, you don't know who you are because you're not seeking your identity where it actually is. Trying to figure out what you want to do in life is not who you are anyway. You're seeking something else you enjoy.
So do you feel like that's changed for you in the last 10 years since we've been together, or
Which one?
or
Specifically?
7 years since we've been open?
What specifically has changed for you?
Like, do you feel like your understanding of that has changed? Because I know, like, obviously mine has changed, like, just within the last 6 months to a year.
Absolutely.
So when we opened this, do you feel like you were very much like, I am a business owner, and now you're like, that's evolving, or?
Yeah, it's it used to be a whole lot of what can I become? Who can I be? What can I do? I have these gifts that God gave me. It's my job to develop them and become this person. And it's not, because when you start having those expectations and those thoughts in your head, you're never going to feel like you've ever once achieved it, right? Like, you can tell me I'm the best football player in the world, it's a God-given gift, all these things, and I'm like, well, if it really is for God, I feel like I need to be doing it better. I should be doing it better. Like, I don't want to just be the best, I want to be further than that, right? Because if you have that relationship, you want to make him proud, you want to make sure that it is so unbelievable that everyone has to know it's from God. And then you have a Dan Marino who gets passed by a Peyton Manning or Drew Brees, then gets passed by Tom Brady, who will eventually be passed by someone else, and or you have like an Aaron Rodgers who has a crappy team around him some years and can't perform to the levels the others do, and there's so many variables that come to that, and if that's your identity, then all of a sudden you just don't hate your Cowboys fan. You feel like you let it down because you didn't rise to the standard of what you were supposed to in your mind. And that's the biggest thing of it. Like, we're here to serve. We're here to follow Christ. We're here to serve others the way that He served. We're here to hold a standard. We're here to spread a gospel. We're here to.
I don't think I really understood that though for a long time until recently. Do you feel that way? Like,
Understood what?
so it was like we were in the industry of serving, but it felt like we were serving in the wrong sense. Like, I feel like within probably, again, the last 6 months to a year, it's really been like serving in His name and His people versus, I think before it was like we were trying to serve to make people happy to come to our gym.
Yeah.
Do you feel like
Well,
that's...
for the longest time, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church, and they would always talk about, well, my job and my spiritual life, they're different. They're not the same. And it's like, okay, so you're placing your identity on the earth. So we need to have that conversation. We need to figure that out because you can't be two different people. You're one or the other. So it's one of those deals where it's like, once you start to accept that the only reason I have this gym or we have this gym is because God gave it to us and He brought us here, and no matter what we do, it doesn't make you successful. I don't care what anybody tries to tell you.
Right.
Like, I can put a million things on Facebook, I can do a million things, but unless someone has that conviction to come in and try to change their life, like, it'll never happen, and I can't place that within them, right? That's a moment they had, that's something internal that happened within them, it has nothing to do with me. So, my job is simply to do what I'm supposed to do. Like, I'm supposed to still be doing X, Y, Z and having systems and making sure I can do what I can, but I don't have any control over that. So the moment I realized, like, this is just something that God has pre-laid out for me to come into and do, and I'll say steward for lack of a better expression, then I'll think it's mine, and I'll start to, how do I want to do it, and how can I do it, and I don't want religion in it because some people may be turned away, and I don't want. That's a whole lot of I, right? So then all of a sudden it's, you're placing your identity back into yourself, you're placing your identity back into earth. I am a business owner, I am a bodybuilder, I am. And that's why we never feel fulfilled. That's why we always feel halfway there. That's why we always feel, these different things. And obviously, we kind of made the transition January of 2025 to completely dive into being faith-based. And obviously it wasn't popular, despite what anybody wants to try to say or pretend. Like, we lost a bunch of people, and it is what it is. Like,
But I think October of 2024 was a big shift for both of us. That was when I chose to step away from training, and we tried the whole me being at home for a while. Charlie, we had just hired a trainer, and looking back on it, it all kind of makes sense now.
I'm good.
Okay, good. Glad you're good. I feel like it all makes sense now, but that was when I tried to step away. You wanted to let me be the stay-at-home mom I wanted to try to be for the next couple of years, and it was several mental breakdowns, and then shortly thereafter I was pulled back in, which would have been December of 2025 or 2024, and then January of 2025 we really started, I feel like, going faith-based.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think that's where a big shift happened.
Drank first.
I think that's when the lines of communication really became open. I was very vulnerable. I think I had to really shed, and I think that's probably been one of the biggest struggles of our relationship and working together, is I felt like I had to be what you quote unquote call a boss babe. So there was two alphas in the same place, instead of ultimately letting you lead and just following your lead and understanding you were going to make mistakes. It was like, well, if I had control, there was going to be no mistakes, and if there was mistakes, it was my fault, But when Charlie and I first worked together, before we opened this, we were a very big powerhouse for Anytime Fitness. I mean, we made them a lot of money, but I was membership, you were training, and we were very unstoppable. I mean, that's how we ended up on the business trip, was because basically I would bring people in, hear their story, set them up with Charlie, but I believed in his training. I knew he wanted to really help people. So it wasn't for, I don't even feel like even then it was money driven. Yeah, that was cool that we hit those numbers, but it was genuinely about the people even then.
Yeah.
And when it stopped becoming about the people, that's when you and I chose to leave. So I think that's kind of the hard part.
Being videoed on a video.
It's in a video though. Make it post on your Instagram or Reels.
But yeah, no, in 2024, first and foremost, my job as the husband, as the man of the house, was to allow you to have that time to heal, to search, to find your role, to do those things. And one thing led to another, because as you found your role and your standing with Christ, you found your role and standing with me and the company. And I know it's not popular nowadays with the being a servant or subservient to your husband, etc., being submissive or whatever you want to call it. But the word in the Bible that's used, it's used 20 times. 16 of them are for God Himself. He refers to Himself the same way. And it's not a lesser, nowadays we think an assistant or an apprentice or a secondary person that's a lesser. It's not anything to do with being lesser. And wives submitting to their husband has nothing to do with even with their husband. It's God called you to do this as your role. So you're submitting to God's will, which is to submit to your husband. And I know that's not popular nowadays to say, but
it actually is.
It is what it is.
I feel like when you surround yourself with the right women, right, the ones that, and I had to get past that, right? I don't want people to be deterred from coming here. So, I ask that question a lot around the right women. Okay, well, how do like, I don't want people to feel like I have this standard, so they don't wanna come in, right? Cause I wanna meet people wherever they're at. And we've actually had this discussion, there's even, you know, a girl in the gym right now who's struggling with this, because for a while now, there are several women that feel like they have to be alphas, like they have to raise their kids alone, and they have to go to work, and they have to do all these things. And then I think coming out of that role for me was super hard, like allowing myself to trust you, to know that I may never have to go back into that role again. You know, God willing that, you know, our marriage stands that way, but I had to trust our marriage first to understand that. But I think I also had to trust you in the workforce, which was hard, because it was like, I had to give you all of me. You know, I couldn't go to work and have that, like, identity. You know, it was like, my whole identity was simply here with you.
You only have one identity. When you start with split
Right.
identities, they give you medicine for it. Yeah, that's funny. But you can only have one, and that's where most people have these issues, that they try to think that there's so many things. You're only one thing, and there's just several things you do.
So what he's saying is, I got rid of my other 6, because he used to say I had 7, so.
But yeah, you know, one thing I'll say is men who've experienced chaos will chase peace no matter what it costs. And if your man, if your husband, boyfriend, whatever, you know, just for the record, if he's your boyfriend, you don't submit to him. That's not a thing. He's trying to win you over, not the other way around. Up until you agree to become one flesh, then it's a submission in that sense of things. But your husband, if he grew up in chaos, if he's experienced chaos, if he's experienced a lot of things, he will seek peace over anything. So there was a lot of times where you would get loud, you'd get upset, I'm doing this, we're doing this. I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, we're doing it. I don't care. Fine, do it. Fine. And a lot of times women will be like, well, my man just won't lead. Like, no, your man's choosing peace and you're not giving him the option. And then, you know, on the opposite end of that, you know, I'll call the men out too. Like, men, just because it's uncomfortable and you want the peace does not mean you're supposed to back down and be submissive to it. If you know what's right and what's right, you're supposed to be the bad guy. If you're not ready for your family to be pissed at you, you're not ready to be a husband or a father. There are several times I make decisions that she does not like, my kids don't like, and then 5-6 weeks later they look back and like, you know what, that was probably best. And there's times where I'm wrong, you know, something like that. Like, that just is what it is. You do the best with what you have, information in front of you. You pray about it, and you go on.
Which I think is where truly the helper role comes into play, because I've seen now in the last 6 months to a year with like letting you really take over in the business and like at home, there's several times like you're just exhausted, or like understanding that you have really like upset people and you just need that sense of like peace that you're looking for. So I think that's where women, like when you want to have that feminine feel and you get tired of being that way, which I think leads into a lot of PCOS, like we've talked about before, which will be another podcast, comes into play because
Another episode?
whatever, yeah, another episode, sorry. You know, discussing PCOS comes from a lot of that like trauma and trying to be the alpha. Your body's literally fighting against you.
Well, you're a mama bear. I mean, that's normal.
Yeah.
You're a single mom, so you have to be a mama bear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
I didn't silence my phone. I figured it was even since you don't have a silencer. So.
That's a clip.
That's a clip. Yeah, I forgot what we were even talking about. That's great.
Mama
So,
bear.
Mama bear.
she's a mama bear.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I really wish women would understand, and I know you do, but not as much as I wish you would. Like, we don't experience life the way you do.
Mhm.
And nowadays, everyone thinks it's all the same, it's all even. Like, we don't. And I know it's popular nowadays to talk about how different people experience it differently, but I wish it was more known that men just don't experience life anywhere close to the same as you guys do.
Right.
You know, you guys grow up playing house and imagining your wedding and your husband and kids and all these different things in your house, and you know,
For the record, I didn't. I just loved Spice Girls.
You guys, every single romance movie that girls love, 9 times out of 10, it's a woman choosing between 2 men. Most of the time, she cheats on one of them, and because it's in the name of love, it's justified. Like, think about all of them. Twilight, she's with one, making out with another, back to the other. You know, you want to talk about what's one of the most famous ones ever, The Notebook, right? She's literally engaged, whatever, making out with another dude, and you're like, but it's romantic. No, it's not. It's cheating.
I think there's a huge misconception there, but we'll go into that another time.
We won't go into a misconception. It's facts.
Yeah.
She was in a committed relationship. She went against it.
No. I'm saying like the misconception of what you guys think that we think is romantic.
Well,
his gestures were the romantic part.
it wasn't gestures. It was cheating. But for men, it's black and white like that. Like, this is where it was. This is what happened. It's cheating. For girls, it was so sweet because he loved her so much that he just wouldn't give up, and she discovered that she actually loved him instead of him. First off, love is not a feeling. Get that out of your head. That's Hallmark. They've sold it to women, and that's how they sell Valentine's Day and all these other things. Love is doing things despite how you feel. Love is an action. Love is not a feeling. You can't quantify it. It's not an emotion.
So let's tie that back into what we were previously talking about. So this is 90% of our conversations. Love, I feel like in the workforce, that's been really hard too, because Charlie is an affectionate person.
This is one of those moments where I have my goat.
No, we're trying to stay on topic about
Well, the topic.
working together and yeah,
But no,
and not killing each other.
You were talking about needing peace when we come home.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I said, I wish you'd experience life, or understand how many experience life, because it's not just that. Like, even like right now, while we sit in the gym, I've checked out the window, I've checked at the door at the mirror, when we walk in a mall, I check around us everywhere we go, and you're skipping through, having fun. I wonder if I get this, maybe we get a little snacky snack. And everything that's going through my head is, okay, this mall has had 4 shootings in the last 2 years. Does anyone look suspicious? Do I need to have my pistol ready? What's going to happen when we come through this door? I need to go through this door first. If she goes in there, I need to look around the sides. Like, that stuff happens in my head without me ever once thinking about it, because that's how we grew up. We didn't have any of that with you guys. So, like, you guys are like, dude, we had a great day at the mall. It was so stress-free. And for us, we're like, dude, I had to watch 117 people walk in and out of the room and make sure no one's going to kill you. You're stress-free. I'm not. And that's why when we come home, like, we want to relax. We want that stress. We want to just breathe. We want to get on a game or get on a movie or just lay there with you so our mind can relax, because we're home, we're safe, no one's around you, no one's going to hurt you. I don't have to think about that. So that's where that piece is so important, because we do experience life different than that. Like, if you have a true man, you have a husband, that is literally what goes through his mind all day, every day, on top of figuring out finances and work and all the other stuff that goes with it.
So how do you feel like, since you brought that up, because I feel like that's a great topic right there, because there's been several instances that have said like, don't go in there because he's jealous and blah blah blah, or like, for instance, where there have been people that have come here that have tried to, cause that. I mean, how do you feel with me? Because there's been some instances that have happened where people come in angry and, you're not here because you're having to work, at the school or wherever. How do you feel like that was for you, knowing that your wife was here in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I ask you every time it happens is who else is there? Who's around you? Is Jeremy there? Is Chris there? We got a lot of officers who work out here at the gym. That's the first thing I always ask, because I'm like, okay, I know them. If something turns sour, they're there. They're going to make sure she's okay. They'll step in between. And most of the time with the gym, it's not nearly as big of a deal, right? I mean, it's still to a degree kind of bugs me. If I'm not there, like, that's just that antsy jitters, if there's nothing I can do, that helpless feeling. Yeah, I mean, that's always one of the first thoughts that goes to my head. That's why I bought you a pistol, even though you refused to ever carry it.
Shots fired every
no,
day.
Actually, they're not. They're actually not, because they're under a pistol. But yeah, I mean, that's just, You know, and I hate to say it like this because I know, once again, like nowadays things are so sensitive about certain stuff, but like men have an insanely bigger strength curve than women. It just is what it is. You know, I know people hate it. I know women are getting mad about it, and even you did when we first talked about it. Because I told you, like,
Yeah,
when
but I
Trevor
think
was-
that's changed so much.
What about Ron Rousey?
I don't know, man. I still see a lot of it. I think most women understand it. I shouldn't say that. I think most women do understand it. Like even when Trevor was 13 or 14, I told you like, hey, whether you like it or not, he's stronger than you. Like he can hold you down. He can do whatever. And you're like, no,
But he couldn't
couldn't.
outlift
No, he
me.
couldn't. But he did, and he did outlift you.
It took a while.
He
Took a while.
was 14 or 15. His
Weird.
first powerlifting meet. I'm just saying. But it's just the reality of it, right? And that's where, you know, not just the feeling safe part, but there's a bunch of times where I know women don't like, or they say it's possessive or controlling or whatever they want to call it. When we're like, hey dude, like you really shouldn't be friends with him. He's trying to blah blah blah. Like, no, he's not. I'm like, yes, he is. And I think we've had at least 5 or 6 incidents where I've said that to your face verbatim, and then in less than 6 months found out exactly what I was saying was true. And you're like, well, in my defense, I'm like, there's no defense because I told you.
I think though in the workforce that's really hard though because we genuinely are naturally just nice to people, and I think it really does go both ways. I feel like a lot more than what I even thought.
That's not what I mean.
Women are sneaky about hitting on you. Men are just more direct and they do it like right there.
Well, and there's 2 parts to that. Number one, I'm pretty oblivious with that because it's not that I'm necessarily oblivious, it's because I just don't care.
Yeah.
But I also don't pretend that they're my friend. I'll sit there and be like, oh no, we're just friends, they're just talking, like we're cool, they don't look at me that way. And I'm like, yes, they do.
I think it's
Yes, they
because we
do.
naturally just like most women, and women hop in the comments, but I think most women naturally just don't trust other women because there isn't like that bro code essentially. We have grown up thinking that there's like a bro code, so for us it's like, well, they all know that I'm married to you, so I'm
Doesn't
like,
matter.
they don't care.
Bro code is only between bros. If we're not bros, they don't care.
Right, but that's what I'm saying though, like if guys would try to like quote unquote hit on me, it's like I was oblivious because I'm like, they know who my husband is. You see what I'm saying? So like for us, we're just like, like that's our husband, like they don't, you know.
I mean, there's expressions about that. I don't think they're appropriate to say on a podcast, but we all know what a shoulder to cry on is.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's just, you know, there's certain ways where you do have to interpret, right? Because I'm not saying some guys aren't overly jealous and overly protective and just, you know, controlling as far as essence goes. Like there are some who are absolutely taken too far
Yes.
and have their own insecurities 100%. And that's something they have to deal with as men, as individuals. But, you know, there's several times where, you know, you're telling me, hey, we're going to Carmel. And I'm like, okay. But you're like, hey, I'm going to Greenwood Mall. And I'm like, no, like, not okay. Bring your pistol. I'm going. I'll stay down by the sports store in Lids. Y'all do whatever you want to do. But, like, no.
But how do you think that made you feel, like, with, like, if you could go back or change any of it or anything like that, like, the couple of instances that I'm talking about, like, probably there was the old man where he kept telling me to like sit down and be quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he didn't believe that a woman should be in a workforce, so it was very clear like I
Yeah.
was not allowed to talk to him.
Yeah.
He very much went around me, but then also tried to belittle and tell me what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And I think that was really tough because I feel like I did really well at keeping my cool with it. And it was a very hard understanding because I was in the nursing industry for a long time, so I do have respect for my elders. So I knew where he was coming from.
Yeah.
And I respected it, but not in the sense of the way that he did it. So I mean, like, how do you feel like that was working together but also being your wife? Like,
Yeah. So you weren't my wife at the time, actually.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
First off, I was in complete shock. I'm not gonna lie. Like when she grabbed me and brought me in, I genuinely thought she was joking with me. Like she was just trying to mess with me. They were playing this out, and I walked in there, and you he said his little spiel or whatever he was saying. I looked over at her and she's just dead faced. It started to click like, oh wait, this isn't a joke. This dude really thinks this.
And it was really bad. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah,
like, he just-
honestly, so my first thought whenever he said the initial part was, okay, this guy grew up in a different time period. Back then it wasn't okay for women to work, not because necessarily that they were less or anything else, but because like they were supposed to be able to stay home and take care of the kids and do stuff like that. So at first I'm like, okay, I'm trying to look at this from I don't say ignorance is bliss stance, but almost just like he has his beliefs, he has, it was assuming positive intention, right? I try my best to always assume positive intention. So I'm just like assuming, okay, like he wants to negotiate maybe with the owner or whatever it may be, like he heard that was me, like, I'm trying to assume positive intention. Then when he started into a spiel about how just women are just stupid and, verbatim, I swear to you, like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was like, women are just stupid and they ain't really good for much except for helping around the kitchen or even in the garden. And honestly, my wife's not even that good in the garden. And at that point, like, I don't think I heard the next couple sentences he said, because like in my brain, I'm like, you have a wife? She's still with you?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, she's put up with this for how long? Like, she chose to marry you? And like, so I'm having my own conversation in my head, and I look down at her, and once again, she's just dead-faced, just straightforward, and he started trying to negotiate and talk to me, and I kind of just cut him off. I'm like, you know what, man? I think at this point it's best I just walk you out, partly for your safety at this point. And I'm just gonna, because at the time, for those of you who don't know, she used to be a little Louisville slugger out here, punching people in their face left and right.
I did not.
She did. She had an attitude problem.
I did have an attitude problem, but I've only ever been in 2 fights my whole life.
You've punched 3 people in the face just since we've had this gym, so it's not true.
Well, okay. So 3 people total.
Minimum.
Well, anyways.
Not including me.
But I feel like, okay, I have never hit you.
She does. She just swears it's an accident, but that's still for the baby.
But you have to understand that got me to a whole nother level. So.
Yeah, but it's nothing like that. But yeah, I mean, that was just, like I said, it was a lot of processing. I was kind of still in shock, but it's just one of those deals where it's like, despite anything at all, business or not business, like, he's not going to talk to you that way and stay in my building.
Which I do think was hard for me, because in a business standpoint, like, I don't feel like you could really be my husband though. Like, I feel like the true thoughts that you were probably having also have to have like a business face, which I think is hard in this industry, because things that we really want to do when we're married for the other person, which, like you said, I mean, at the time we weren't married, but still, like, I knew you had a lot of respect for me, so to watch you not come to my defense, like, as I felt like you should have, was tough. You know what I mean? Because there's been several instances, like, over the years that's happened, where I just assume you are going to tell this person to, like, F off, and instead, you're like, that's on them. Like, they have to live with that. Like, you need to understand, like, and I think you taught me really valuable lessons in that too, because it was like I had to have a sense of respect in myself that I believed. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't need that validation from these other people. So I think that was really hard. And there was one really big case, that I can think of where you didn't jump to my defense, and that one I think caused a rift, like, in our marriage a little bit, which I think is what set off that October.
Well, and if it's the one I'm thinking of specifically, it's because I asked you 3 times to leave the room and you refused to. So if you wanted to stay there and get the truth thrown at you, then I'm going to stand there and let you get the truth thrown at you. And that was part of you have to learn and develop, as well as this person has to let it out and go about their day.
Yeah.
But
and that was true.
The biggest issue was, before you ever even approached that situation, I already had a full grasp of the situation. I already knew what was happening. I already knew why that person was acting the way they were. I already knew everything about it. and understood it. So basically, I was allowing him just to feel better and leave, and you came in wanting to argue and fight and debate it and all this other stuff, and there was no point, because at that point it was very simple to me, like, this is the end, like, we have no relationship, like, there's no conversation to be had, like, I don't want you in my life, I don't want you around me, you're not worth my time, so I will allow you just to let it out and then leave. And then I will address the back end of it.
Which I think is what started that, because that
And then
happened.
after the back end was addressed, he actually ended up apologizing that the whole situation was fixed. So it wasn't a big deal, but it was, once again, one of those situations where, for me, I'm trying to understand the situation to get the end result I want. You're wanting to come in and react, and we're not supposed to be reactive, The one who reacts and is subject to his emotion is the one who no longer has control of themselves. And the Bible tells us a person without discipline is like a city without walls. So,
And that was in October of 2024, and I think that's what really set it off. That's what really changed a lot of our trajectory on a lot of this, because at that point it was I was trying to defend my character and who I was, and I think that's what really started off really diving deep into my faith, because I had to really let go of a lot of things from my past that were something I couldn't control. And I think that's when a lot of things really started to shift. But that was really hard to be able to work through, when you're working together and living together, because I feel like a lot of that kind of meshed together. Because I was angry at work and at home, trying to understand a lot of that, which I feel opened up though into really good conversations. I think that's when a lot of us working together and being married really, I think, started shifting. I don't know if you feel like I'm right on that.
I feel like that's, especially when you dove into a lot of self-growth and different things with it. I don't know. I think we had two different experiences with that, but that is what it is. So.
Because it was December of 2024 when it really changed. October and November were rough, but I feel like December was when it really kind of started to change. But there's been a lot less. There's been several instances even since then, I feel that we've had, and they've been handled way differently than what they were before. Even building a whole new gym together, I don't feel had you talked to us in 2019 trying to build a gym from the ground up, we were very much who's running this joint. To fast forward to opening the second gym was I feel we did it way more together. There was still tired arguments, I've been working all day, I'm tired, but I feel it was way different this time than it was when we opened the first one. Does that seem accurate? He's probably you're full of shit. But I do feel it was way different, just from my side.
It's different because different situations.
But I feel the first time though, it was almost we were competing. The first time when we opened this one, because it was well, I work more, or you work more, or blah, 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 versus when we opened the second gym, it was okay, we're just doing this, it just has to be done. I feel we've started to find a flow, if that makes sense. No? Yes.
The biggest thing for me was more just there's certain processes that have to happen in business, or certain ways certain things have to be done, right? Just for the legality and the basic flow sense of things. And for the longest time, I felt you were very, we own it, we can do whatever we want, I'm going to do whatever I want, it doesn't matter, it's my right, I own it. And I feel by the time we got to the second one, you got to see a lot more of the processes of things. It started clicking in, okay, maybe there are still rules, like, right? Like, I may be quote unquote my own boss, or we may be our own boss, however you wanna look at it, but we still answer to the government whether we like it or not. So
Right.
you're never truly your own boss, unless you wanna dive into conspiracy theories, but,
That's for another podcast.
that's for another podcast. But, so that's just one of those deals where it's like, things have to be done a certain way, cause there are a lot of back-end stuff where you can get in trouble, even owning your own business, doing things a certain way. And then I feel like a lot of things just started getting chaotic, and then you realize that things don't flow well because this may work for me, but it doesn't work for the other 10 people who have come in here, or the other, you
Yeah.
know. And that's when I'm like, okay, well, it works for you because you've done it forever, you've done this before, you've done X, Y, Z, it makes sense to you. We have to be able to put it in writing and put it in the process. And for the other people that this applies to, it doesn't work that way. So, and it was the same with me. You know, there was, you know, in business you dive into what's called SOPs, your standard of procedures, and there would be dumb stuff like I swear to you, I never thought in my life I'd have to write down on a procedure that you walk up and shake someone's hand and say hi, or you introduce yourself. I never thought I'd have to write that down, but you do. I never thought I'd have to
Not
write
for
down.
me.
Not for her. I never thought I'd have to write down in my employee procedures and standards you have to have that you would need to brush your teeth, comb your hair, and wear deodorant. But I do, you know.
Again, not for me.
Yeah. So that's just crazy how many things that for most of us, or I don't want to say common sense, but just it is. Like, most of us, we go to work, we know we need to dress a certain way, we know we need to be on time, we know we need to, you know, remember we're at work, we know we need to bathe and, you know, smell appropriately, we know we work in close proximity with other people. Yeah, and it was insane, like, you know, and I'd say one thing that we have gotten a lot better at, or just do hold a good standard of, is like, we just don't let stuff like that last very long. Like, if you're gonna act a certain way in here, like, we do have a very good relationship with our clients and members, and we do hold a very well and a very high standard of how things should be done here, and we will try to work with you as an employee as long as you are trying. But if we are constantly going over the same thing repeatedly, we're just gonna move on to the next person.
And I feel like even with members and clients, I mean, we've started holding standards with that as well. You know, we even got rid of, you know, a couple clients just yesterday. You know, because we're like, hey, we're not gonna waste, you know, our time trying to put in these policies for you and hold you to a standard that you signed up for. You know, so if you can't uphold that, you know, I will give it to another spot, and those 2 spots were filled, you know, within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we really want to, you know, help people, you know, change their life.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
before we were trying to fill a gym, now we're trying to really serve.
Yeah, I mean, and it trickles into all aspects of your life, right? So, like, you can take that and apply it anywhere where, you know, you have to hold your own standards. So you have to have expectations of how people treat you. You have to have expectations of how things are done. You have to have grace and love and patience with people as they adhere and learn from those, that they're never going to be perfect with them. But there does have to be a consistent standard. So you'll find that sometimes you're allowing a friend or a family member or whoever to behave a certain way, take advantage of people a certain way, and it wears you out and takes so much energy from you that now you're disservicing or not loving the other people in your life you should be.
Which I feel like we did a lot in the beginning. We've gotten way better at that.
I feel like it's easier the further the person is from you. When they're closest to you, I feel like that's who gets to slip by the most.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been an instance even in the last week where that's very evident.
Like family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where certain standards aren't being held, and it's just tolerated and let, and it starts to pour out to everyone else in the family. So, and I feel like most people do that, right? And then
Especially
from the
when
outside
it's your
in,
kids.
yeah.
Like when it's your kids, it's hard.
And then from the outside in, your friends get upset. You know, you're like, oh, you're always hanging out with so and so, and you complain about him, and he does this, and he does this, and he does this. Why do you still hang out with him? And you're like, well, Then all of a sudden, you now have 2 or 3 friends who are mad at you, who never get to see you. You're always exhausted. You're upset. You always have drama to talk about. And they're like, dude, I just don't want to be around you anymore. Like, you're letting him come into your life and influence you. And I don't want to hang out with him, but I feel like I am through you. So that's where, like I said, a city without walls is a person without discipline. You know, everything comes in and flows, everything changes, and it's got no standards and no expectations of itself. You know, so it loses its identity.
So what is, because I know we've pretty much probably got to wrap up at this point, because we've been on here for a while, but what is one tip that you have for working together without killing each other? Or a couple few little tips. What is something that you feel like from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the big two to I'll say 3. I'll give you 3. The big 3, if I had to pick 3, obviously there's way more, but if I had to pick 3, first and foremost, understand the company. Where is it going? What is it? What's the main goal? Where is it at now? Where does it want to be at? How does it get there? Right? The details of those steps are not important. You'll figure that out along the way, but you have to understand the end goal of the company and the end goal for you, right? I'd say number 2, then have your roles. You can't have 2 leaders, right? 2 heads on a goat, it's gonna die. You know, 2 heads on a snake, they go around a pole, they're gonna get stuck. They're gonna butt heads. It doesn't work. It doesn't work in nature, it doesn't work in business. You have to have a role. If one of you is in charge of, like, let's say a CEO and handling the businesses, the finances, the direction, the execution, the programs, let them run it. You handle your side. It doesn't mean you can't have an opinion, just like any other employee should be able to have an opinion. But if they don't take your opinion for something else, you have to trust, you have to go, and vice versa. And then lastly, you have to be able to separate work from work and home from home. You have to have time where you are husband and wife. You have to have time where you are working. And you have to be able to set those standards. When you're at home, stop talking about work. Write it down, make it a note for tomorrow. Give yourselves half an hour at home to talk about it if you need to, but then stop. Move on from it. You're going to exhaust each other. You're going to annoy the crap out of each other. Just don't. Write it down. Ask tomorrow. So that would definitely be the biggest 3 for me. So.
I think mine would be, especially women, probably more so than anything, take notes. That's one thing, because a lot of times when I go home and like debrief with him, it's so I don't forget, or I would call him in the middle of a session, or while he was doing something else, just because I didn't want to forget, and that makes it very messy for both of you, because it is something where he's not going to remember, more than likely I'm not going to remember, and that created a lot of arguments.
Yeah.
2, I do firmly believe that there definitely has to be roles, for the simple fact of, especially if you've been in like a workforce industry and you're now trying to work together, because I did well before having mine, but I also had to I wanted to achieve and be the best employee that I could, so
See.
that's really hard.
So you're saying role playing is important?
It is. It is definitely important. Yeah. And then I think 3 is respect and understanding. You have to respect each other in the workforce and at home, and then you do have to have understanding that, work is work and home is home, so how he acts at work and how he acts at home are 2 way different things, because who my husband is at home versus work is just way different. So, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, yeah.
Well, the biggest thing is, like, when I get home,
You're more nice.
that's my time to relax and shut up.
Right, but like how you conduct yourself at work is way different than at home, but in a sense of like you're a dad, like you know, have a fire the other night with the kids and things like that. Like
I
when
didn't
you're
have a fire with the kids. I had a fire that came out for 5 minutes and went back inside. I had a fire by myself actually.
but like getting to see you relax, so like shutting off the business mode, because one of the things that will probably drive you women nuts the most is like my husband is sitting, you know, 20 feet away from me, and that's my husband, but watching him like constantly be on his computer and doing things is really hard because he's in this mode of like, I have to get all of this done so I can go home, like I can clock out and go home and be with my family. And that's really hard, I think, when you work together, because at the end of the day, it's still your husband. So I think that understanding has to really come into play, that you're not going to know everything the other person's doing. Like, I don't know everything he does. He doesn't know everything I do. We both just have our own stuff. When it comes to work, don't
What's she out there doing, girl?
when it comes to work, there's a lot of like back end things that I have to do on my computer and vice versa for him. So I think it's understanding that and having the respect of like, we both work
Yeah.
very hard.
Well, and don't be don't be scared to take the 2 minutes to walk over, give him a kiss, give him a little hug, do whatever, and then go back to working. So,
Yeah.
ha,
I know. It's just like alarms.
3 for her, 1 for me. I win.
I had to.
I watched you. I
He
watched
literally
you.
went and got the goat.
She literally
I know she did see the you
made
interrupted me at one
conversation.
point.
And I
And
said,
I literally
go.
grabbed it. I'm like,
He was like about to, and you stopped.
I was going
like
to
that.
throw it in your face. But no, I mean, never forget that. First and foremost, your spouse is more important than your job. That'll always hold true. So don't be scared to still do that. But at the same time, you can be adults, you can work, you can do separate things. So.
Anyways, thanks for being here with us today. We hope we answered a few things. This was something that we honestly have never even really chatted about, so kind of just working through a lot of it. So if you guys have any questions or comments or anything like that, if you don't care about it, just listen anyways and just get us the views. But if you do care, like I said, please leave us a comment or things you want to hear us chat about. And yeah, I mean, we'd love to help you guys along your journey and see what we can do. But we've been doing this for 7 years together, 8 years.
Technically, opened Sapphire in 2017, so we didn't open the gym until 2019. So 7 years of the gym itself.
Oh, we used to run boot camps together. That was fun.
9 years of owning a business here. But
So
10 or 11 years of 11 years. Yeah, almost 11 years of working together in a gym.
So if you have questions on owning a business versus just working together in the workforce or things like that, let us know. That's what we're here for. And if you guys have anything you want to hear us talk about, whether it's business related or family, kids, just each other, whatever it is, let us know. And we'll be happy to answer those questions and maybe trash talk a little bit. All right, see you guys. He's definitely gonna